Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Crypto News Podcast. It's your host, Matt Zahab. We are buzzing as always. What a treat, folks. Summer's on a roll. The weather's beautiful. We are absolutely buzzing. And the show goes on, as always. Super pumped today to have a new first-time guest on the show, but second time from the company. Today, we have Shant Kevonian, the CEO and founder of EtherMail. He is responsible for setting the company's strategy, directing its product vision, developing company culture, and managing its agendas. He is a technical founder with a love for computer programming, started from a very young age, left uni to join the Barcelona startup scene. Another guest coming in from Barca. We love that. He joined hospitality startup ByHours as an intern and was promoted to CTO within 6 months, leading a team of 20 strong. He's also developed high-performance proprietary algos for several startups in his decade-long career as a CTO, and was a senior technical advisor to the interactive virtual concept platform SoundStage.fm, which was acquired by Audius in 2022. This lad also loves gaming and probably has an elite gaming setup, and we will get into that too. Intro is over. Shant, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you doing? And welcome to the Crypto News Pod.
Thanks, Matt. And I'm very much happy to be here. I'm doing great. Training a little, which is much needed in Barcelona. But other than that, doing great.
I love that. I want to jump into the gaming here. I've never actually had like a gaming rig. Tons of buddies who have really, really solid elite gaming rigs. When I was young and just gaming on my parents, whatever, probably base entry-level Dell computer we had back in the day, when my brother and I would be fighting to jump on like MSN to chat with girls in like grade 6, 7, 8, 9 kind of thing, the good old days before Blackberries, before iPhones, before all that fun stuff. When did you get into gaming? Have you always been a huge fan? Walk me through sort of your love inception story for gaming, and then segue into your setup right now. Talk to us about the setup and how elite it is.
Yeah, for sure. So basically when I started, I was maybe also 3 years old or something, because my older brother wanted someone to play with. And so that was basically what got me into it. I've, played a lot of consoles, so from like the Nintendo all the way up to PlayStation 4. I don't yet have a PlayStation 5. And even throughout all the years playing Nintendo, PlayStations, Dreamcasts, and all of those consoles, I was also very much an avid PC gamer. So a lot of my gaming definitely happened on the PC. From, let's say, Counter-Strike 1.6, Counter-Strike Source, Warcraft 1, 2, 3, Blizzard games, StarCraft. So I was really much into real-time strategies that are more popular in terms of the names. But I also played like on DOS way back in the day. So before Windows 3.1, games like Master of Magic and even kid games like Putt-Putt. So it's been something I've done my whole life. In terms of my gaming rig right now, it's not a tower, right? So it's not a box that I put on top of my computer. It's actually my laptop, and it's an Asus Republic of Gaming computer. They get the job done at the moment. And for mobile gaming, I actually bought a Razer Kishi, I think it's called, which allows me to turn my phone into kind of like, I guess, a Steam Deck or something like that. And I can also stream, gaming from the PlayStation 4 onto it. And right now it's very convenient because with a recently born child, it's hard to find a time to play. So I've had to give it up a little bit, but that's what I'm doing.
100%. I miss gaming, man. I don't really have time anymore, but I guess it's always an excuse. You can always find time for anything in life. I just haven't been gaming, but I do miss it. I miss the good old days of, growing up in Canada, playing NHL with the boys, playing Call of Duty. There was still nothing better than playing hockey with your best friends and then coming back and after practice or after a game, like you just jump on COD, Modern Warfare 2 and just destroy everyone. There's still nothing better than that. Some of the best memories ever, but this isn't a gaming pod. This is a crypto pod, and I digress. We shall jump into it. EtherMail, we already had G on the show. That was an absolute treat. Sort of blew my mind about the future of email and really how it could change email commerce forever. We had you guys back on earlier, I think pretty darn early in Q1. It might have even been late Q4 of last year, but nonetheless, you guys now have the token. It's locked and loaded. TGE was actually a couple of weeks ago on June 12th. This episode's going to air early July, mind you. But you guys have been absolutely grooving. I'm going to throw the ball over to your court here. Why is mail, so important in society? And how is it such an important part of the internet? And then sort of segue into how you guys are moving and grooving and creating, the Web3 email application that can really take over all email as a whole.
Absolutely. So, email was probably like one of the first decentralized applications kind of built. And especially when you look at it kind of with the regards to communication, right? And communication really sort of helps accelerate adoption in many regards, right? So the Industrial Revolution with communication accelerated. You also had in the past the telegraph, and then you've also had the phone. So communication always accelerates things, right? And so email being one of the first widely adopted and standardized decentralized protocols for the internet made a very big impact. And it's had such a big impact that everyone still has probably a lot of their original accounts, whether it was on Gmail, whether it was on Yahoo, Hotmail, or
100%.
MSN, whatever.
Yeah.
Right. So it had such a profound impact that people 20, 30 years later are still using those same accounts. And that time, right, has allowed people to become accustomed to a means of communication. How it's been used has sort of shifted, but the means and the way that people are communicating still exists, right? So before maybe, we didn't have, let's say, WhatsApp, we didn't have maybe Facebook Messenger, whatever it might have been. Personal communication did happen via email. Now it's more based on, I want my invoices, I want professional communication with third parties, whether it's for personal use or for intra-company or even offers, right? All of these types of communications or advertisements or legal aspects all happen on email, right? Email has evolved in such a way that, it also has legal jurisdiction. So if there's a chain of emails and you want to use that, let's say in court, it has validity because there is a set of technological insurances there that make sure nothing's been tampered with. And so you have a lot of institutions that support email, right? And so in terms of user adoption, people have been using it for 20, 30 years. We don't believe it's going to disappear. It's still mainly ingrained when you think about how you log into many platforms, how companies get in touch with you, whether it's on your favorite social media or it's on your favorite e-commerce. Where do you track your orders? Let's say on Amazon, it's all on email, right?
It's a digital ID and wallet. That's what it is. It's a means of entry to whatever you want on the internet. Like that's how you open the door,
Exactly. And so since we very much believe this, we think that it's right with all of the new blockchain and Web3 technologies to really take it into the next level. And we believe that, institutions are more likely to adopt an upgrade in a protocol, let's say going from 2G to 3G to 4G, right? Or now maybe 5G, than it is to say, let's just scrap all of mobile, right? So they're not going to say, let's scrap all of email. They're going to say, let's make it better. So that's pretty much how we see it and going into the future.
I love that. And if I'm a Web2 normie and I'm a little curious about Web3, this is a great product because this is something that I'm familiar with. It's something that I will most likely use every single day. I mean, when G was on the show, he mentioned that 320 billion emails are sent every day, which is like pretty wild, but honestly makes sense when you think about it. And then think of all the companies. I remember back when, I'm still doing sales to some capacity, but sending 10,000 emails a day for a client, e-com, whatever the case may be, B2B SaaS, you're firing emails left, right, and center. But if I'm a Web2 person and I'm like, Shant, why does this need to be Web3 related? Email's so good as is. Why sort of risk the biscuit and go the Web3 route? What do you tell them? What do you say to them?
Email, as it is, as you say, is very well institutionalized. It's used in many ways, shapes, and forms. So while there are some fundamental issues, it really depends on the prism in which you're looking at it, right? So if you're looking at it from the Web2 aspect and you're asking about, well, why email? You can do certain things. So there's a lot of, let's say, phishing, scam, trust issues that do happen on Web2 email that then Web3 technologies can really prevent this from happening if applied correctly. So that's the first question, right? The second aspect of it is that currently, while email is widely used, you are the product, right? So when you're talking about Google, you're talking about Hotmail, etc., they can read your emails because it's not encrypted, and then they can use this to better target advertisement. So with Web3 technologies, you can look at the encryption aspect and be like, wait, I prefer my privacy. And when you look at it again further, because of the way that the Web3 ethos kind of works, a lot of it can happen anonymously. So you can also maintain your anonymity. And so there's a lot of factors that play into this. So while on one hand, we can upgrade the protocol to have all of these benefits and make it all much better. On the other hand, you also have the Web3 experience, which is very difficult. It's very modern. You have to use wallets. You have to use all of these things. So we see that with email, which is an experience everybody understands, you can actually get into the Web3 space using the exact same experience you're already familiar with. And that's what EtherMail is working on, right? We can bridge all these Web2 users to come into Web3 because they're all asking, well, how do I get in there? What is a wallet? All these things are very confusing. So for us, it's very simple to say, no, you just need a Web3 email account. Everyone understands what email is, right? And so for us, that's how we sort of see the bridging, how we can bring these two worlds together. You can improve the protocol, you can give the privacy, you can give the means of communication, you can give all of this in one beautifully packaged solution, which we call Ether.
And that's just email on steroids, which is EtherMail.
Exactly.
I love it.
You can do very amazing things too, like sending payments via email. You can send NFTs via email. You can do so many things when you use these technologies, which is really amazing.
Yeah, it's so cool. And I mean, we might as well jump into ETH for a second here. I'd love if you could walk me through your tech stack. I mean, obviously you guys, have been building and launching for a couple of years now. If you were to launch today, would you have done anything different? Would you have maybe launched on Sol or a Manta or, a Sui? Like, would you have perhaps chose a more B2B centric blockchain or a more consumer centric blockchain like Solana that's trending? Because I mean, again, the ETH narrative is so weird. As you and I are recording, by the time this episode airs, ETH very well could be at 4.5, 5K. Everyone thinks that ETH is going to absolutely melt face soon. Where a couple months ago, everyone was shitting on ETH. It was the negative talk of the town. I'd love if you could just walk us through sort of your tech stack, what blockchain you guys use. Obviously, it's in the name. Everyone can sort of figure that out. And just sort of segue that into things you maybe would do differently if you'd be launching or perhaps starting to build literally today in early July.
So in regards to the tech stack and which platforms we chose, we picked the name EtherMail because we saw it as a very versatile name, first of all, which can encompass the entire EVM space. So while there's a lot of secondary chains and things like that, right? So you can say, a Polygon, you can say Binance, you can say Celo, you can say all of these, right? It encompasses a big enough aspect of the blockchain world, which allows us to be flexible in that aspect where there is a large share of the user base. It also helped us very much to, establish a standard in communication to understand that your wallet address can be an email address. And as long as it's EVM compatible, you can get in touch, right? And so that's pretty much what we went for in terms of name. It's also why we chose Ethereum and all EVM compatible. And arguably when we first started, it was probably, and it still arguably is, one of the main ecosystems in the Web3 and blockchain space. So while Solana and other ones may be gaining traction using different algorithms and wallet formats and paradigms, for us at the moment, we also picked the solution. The changes that have been coming up were of less relevance. So I don't think I can go back in time and have made a different choice.
100%. Yeah, no, I feel you there. I mean, the EVM compatibility is such a trendy and large topic right now. Are you still in the camp that the Ethereum ecosystem and more specifically EVM compatibility, EVM interoperability, do you think that'll still be the sort of the big dog, the biggest chain after Bitcoin? I mean, I can't see anyone or anything catching Bitcoin ever, in my opinion, but ETH still has a pretty darn good stranglehold on number two. Obviously, first mover advantage, massive. But has that first mover advantage sort of lost a bit of its legs, lost a bit of its moat? Do you still see ETH as the David to the Goliath, perhaps?
So I don't believe that it's a question of whether Ethereum will remain number two or not. So a lot of, I would say, chains that are releasing their solutions might be really doing features than they are, let's say, adding value to the ecosystem. So I think EVM in general is a very big ecosystem, and it's going to be very hard to dethrone in terms of a new technology coming in because it has the adoption of developers. Wherever developers are, arguably users will have to follow because the developers are saying you have to be here, right? So to get a bunch of developers, it starts becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because if developers start building a series of tools for an ecosystem. And then other developers start building up on top of this because it's just easier because the tools are already there. Then it starts becoming kind of like an exponential curve or a flywheel that more developers just keep building on it because of simplicity, because it's more advanced, because of this. And then eventually, if you start building valuable products, then users have no choice but to use it there, right? And to get an entire industry, let's just say MetaMask, to all of a sudden say, no, I'm going to abandon MetaMask's EVM and then just move to Solana. Maybe they're going to do some bridges, maybe they're going to do this, but I don't believe they're going to say, let's make it now the default RPC selection to be Solana instead of the EVMs, right? So all of this to try and move this industry, I think, is very difficult. Obviously, Ethereum and the EVM ecosystem are very different to Bitcoin. It's like comparing apples and oranges. While some people are trying to make Bitcoin kind of more like Ethereum with smart contracts and things like that, I think what's trying to be done is turning an apple, trying to turn it into an orange, and you're going to end up with something half-baked. But in terms of the ecosystem, I don't see it disappearing. I do see upgrades happening and the adoption remaining.
Well said there. We got to jump into the token. EMT, I mean, that was a pretty darn successful launch. Hats off to you guys, snaps to you guys. Not a lot of teams execute with that type of precision. And I mean, you guys are trending everywhere as well. And it makes sense because a lot of people, when a token gets launched, you have that speculative nonsense right at the beginning, but a lot of the longer term holders sort of do have that macro narrative, or at least a narrative with a longer time frame and a longer horizon. And with a narrative and an ethos like you guys attacking email, I mean, it makes a lot of sense why it could get a lot of legs. I'd love if you could sort of go through your process in launching. Obviously, you're not going to be able to, show us everything under the hood, but if you could tell us a couple things that you wish you maybe did differently, a couple things that went absolutely, perfectly that you would 100% do over again and recommend to others, just sort of, open up the playbook for us. Tell us about what needs to be done in order to get a successful token launch.
So launching a token, if you want to do it legitimately, is a very difficult and arduous process. You want to go through the proper regulatory channels, right? So doing that takes its time and effort, and you have to be really patient. We know that there's a lot of meme coins. We know that there's a lot of coins that don't go through these regulatory channels, and then they find themselves in problems and causing, let's say, deception within their communities. We've chosen to really take the hard path with regards to all of this. And, you have to work with many, many different parties, whether they're lawyers, they're accountants, they are government institutions. And, the laws are still coming into place. So there's a lot of difficulty in discerning what is correct, what is not correct. And we've gone through all of that homework to make sure that we've done everything in our power to make sure that we will not find ourselves in any situation, like a meme coin or something with that regards. And so even then, once you've figured all of that out, you still have to figure out the tokenomics you want, right? And to sort of find out, okay, with this utility token that we're building, how is this the utility? How can you demonstrate the utility? And does the product really sustain itself? Is there really a demand for it? And so all of this requires a lot of homework. And we worked with a lot of amazing partners to be able to pull that off to try and make our token successful.
Well said. We'll definitely jump more into that, but we do need to give a huge shout out to our sponsor of the show and longtime friends of cryptonews.com. You guys know who it is. That is Prime XBT. We love the team at Prime XBT as they offer a robust trading system for both beginners and professional traders. It doesn't matter if you're a rookie or a veteran. You can easily design and customize your layouts and widgets to best fit your trading style. Prime XBT is also running an exclusive promo for listeners of the pod. The promo code is CryptoNews50. That is CryptoNews50, all one word, to take advantage of this offer and receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. Again, that is CryptoNews50, all one word, to take advantage of this offer and receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. I want to jump back to EMT for a second, just because I really love and again, just for the listeners here, sometimes when a guest comes on, I ask them about their tokens. Sometimes I don't. This is strictly my own curiosity. If I own some of it, I will let you know. I actually own 0 EMT at the moment. That will most likely change, but I just have not had my ducks in a row. I don't own any EMT, and guests never pay to get on the podcast either. This is our own curiosity, and we just want world-class guests with world-class companies so they can, teach you guys some stuff, tell some good stories, give some alpha. But with that being said, EMT, tokenomics are super cool, but I don't want to bore anyone with tokenomics because not that many people care. The utility, though, a lot of people talk about a token utility. What does it do besides just the speculative nonsense? You guys actually have some really cool utility that does power really cool and sick applications within a sort of email ecosystem. And I'd love if you could describe sort of the token utility. I could try and butcher it, but I'll throw the ball over to your court here.
The most relevant one that we can highlight here, to not bore, as you mentioned, right? But it's a very obvious use cases. In Europe, you have what is called GDPR, where you sort of have to get consent from companies to get
that's stupid
newsletters.
Check the box.
Exactly.
It's the worst. Every European website. Do you agree to the bullshit GDPR rules? Yes.
There you go.
Should never happen.
So
yes.
In our way, even though that has sort of been applied, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's worked. So as soon as someone does the checkbox and companies are sort of say, oh, I got the email. So they start sending you massive amounts of content regardless, right? And then you're like, well, even though it is legitimate communication, it is legitimate advertisement, you did say you were interested in it, you have no idea potentially how much volume and how much nonsense they were going to send you, right? In terms of email. And so then people incorrectly identify or call this spam. This is more just, an abuse of marketing. So what does EtherMail try and do with the token to change this? So even though you've given consent, companies would have to actually reward you with EMT to interact and see those emails. So it's kind of like they have to foot a bill, arguably, before sending you the emails. And that can deter them from sending high volumes of irrelevant content. So first, it ensures consent. The second thing is it sort of gives you a fair value, the rewards for the time you spend with interacting with an email. And it makes sure that all the parties are in a win-win-win situation, arguably.
I mean, that's massive. And walk us through the actual sort of UI, UX of the whole thing. Looks, feels like traditional email. To my knowledge, you can use obviously your .eth domain or a .ethermail domain, whatever the case may be. Like, walk us through it. Give us not the elevator pitch, but like if I'm a Web2 person being like, Shant, why should I switch? Why should I gas Gmail and go to you guys? What do you tell them?
If you respect your privacy and you want to receive less emails, then that's the number one thing I can tell you. But otherwise, if you also have curiosity and want to get into the Web3 world and you're afraid of wallets, you're afraid of all these crazy terms, just create a Web3 email account. It's the easiest way to do it.
I love it. Besides EtherMail, besides ETH, because we have touched a very fair chunk of those two subjects, what other areas of crypto are getting you going at the moment? I know obviously DeFi is super trendy, DePIN, RWAs. Are there any other areas of crypto that really tickle your fancy and pique your curiosity present day?
So there's of course a lot of novel applications. I think we're still seeing very much like the layer ones. You can call it, I would call it sort of like the wirings and the boilerplate and all of this of the industry. So I think we still have yet to see the real big applications where everyone's going to be like, wow, I can't not be using this solution.
Yeah, there's no FOMO yet.
The FOMO there is it's been very speculative. And when there's a bear market, there's a tree shaking, everyone, and it dies out and it comes back, and it's not necessarily healthy. Like meme coins shooting up and then crashing, and all of this. It's not necessarily good for the ecosystem. It does attract new users. It does attract interest. It does attract a lot of things. But we still, I very much believe, have yet to see the killer use cases. We do hope that EtherMail can help accelerate the existence of these with that regard, right? So I really did like the NFT concept. I really do still believe that there will be use cases coming up in the future. We still are not there. I think there's a lot of legwork that needs to happen in terms of judiciary recognition of if you buy and sell a house via an NFT. There's a lot of things that still need to happen on institutional levels, technological levels, and user adoption levels. I think zero knowledge proofs, even though they're a little older in terms of its discovery, but in terms of its adoption, I think it's something that really interests me. I hope that helps answer the question.
100%. I want to go back to your sort of killer use case app for a second. It's got to be some type of consumer viral app. It has to be. I can't see a B2B app opening the floodgates. The only sort of B2B app that I could see, and it's not even really B2B because it's more like C2B/C2C, as in like Crown Corporation. At least that's what we call them in Canada if it's government ran. The only massive fully national or global scale app that I could see is if like, a lot of the big G20, G7, whatever countries in the world roll out some type of ZK tech app that allows you to store your ID on your phone. So when I go to the bar and someone wonders if I'm, 21 or not, or in Canada 19, I don't have to show them my whole ID. It's a binary ZK related use case where it's just scan, is Matt over the age of 19? Yes or no? No other info gets shown to the bouncer. I think if the government did that would, people would be like, oh shit, this is crypto. But then again, that probably wouldn't make any money. So I don't know. But what do you think it's going to be? It's got to be something consumer related, most likely 99% from a private corporation. Any in particular going to be a social network? Is it going to be a new exchange? What's going to bring us home?
So funny you say that, though. There's, if I'm not mistaken, and I very well could be, of course, European Union has about 10 countries that are working on a unified blockchain that then they can do things, I think maybe even what you are mentioning. So it is possible, right? Let's not discard it because it's very much possible. They did not name the 10 countries, but they are saying that they are working on it. With regards to a private company, it could very well be a social media. It could be a new ticketing platform. It could be quite a few of these things, even new banking services, right? We do talk about DeFi, but you could have just legitimate banks building on this, and that would be sufficient. However, I do have a belief that it might not necessarily be a single app that all of a sudden just causes floodgates opening. It could very well also just be a gradual shift. So, hypothetically, when I run this through my head, it could be that, all new companies just want to build their company as a Web3 company, no other reason needed. True. And given enough time, if all companies arguably are just Web3 companies, then all users by definition would also have to end up being Web3 users. So I don't know if there necessarily has to be a big one-off, it attracts everything magnet type situation, or it could just be a gradual transition where, you maybe had like the Nokia and Nokia is like, oh, who cares about the smartphone, or BlackBerry, right? They didn't adapt. And then they just sort of phased out.
Boom.
And it didn't have to happen overnight, right? Over a few years, it just happened. So I think that could just be a natural transition.
Yeah, that's a good point. A lot of people are in the same camp as you, but I still think there's got to be some app, or at least I think that will happen. But there needs to be an application that kickstarts the momentum.
Oh, that
right?
definitely.
Where it's like,
you can see the value. Yeah,
exactly.
Like, why am I on Web3? What am I doing here?
Exactly. The why, like why did people got on MySpace? It kicked off. I was never on MySpace. I was too young. But I think I got on Facebook in grade 7, and I'm in 1995. So if I was in grade 7, I was 12. That would have put me at 2007, I guess, being on Facebook. And why did I join Facebook? For FOMO. No one wanted to not be on Facebook because you're missing out on so much shit.
That's true.
Yeah. So it's like, I feel, and then that got everyone to Insta and YouTube and Snap and TikTok and blah, blah, blah. So it's like, we need that killer consumer app to really open up the floodgates, get that FOMO in where it's like, I'm either missing out on some type of social aspect, I'm missing out on some type of wealthy aspect. Who knows? Maybe it's a healthy aspect. Maybe there's a Web3, health related app that's too friggin' good to be true. And if you don't get on your hoop. So anyways, a lot of exciting things ahead. Shant, I really appreciate your time as always. You and the team doing really good work. And I love when someone comes on and is building a consumer-facing app that really could change things. And we appreciate that. Before we let you go today, any new news that's popping off? Mind you, your episode is going to air early July. Any news that we can look forward to before we let you go?
So we are finally getting very close to what we would believe that the industry needs. So we're getting very close to being able to finally bridge the user experience in such a way that Web2 users can use Web3 seamlessly as if it was as good as Web2. And then people will kind of ask themselves, well, what was the difference between Web3 and Web3 and Web2? And I think if we do manage that, and that is going to be coming in one of our next releases, so to really keep an eye on that. But, I think it'll reach to such a point that if other people start building on and with EtherMail, as we talk, more and more companies can start building just Web3 companies. And we do hope that at one point it just sort of like, oh, we're on the web. Like there's no need to say Web3. And so we do believe we're getting to that moment in terms of our technological solution, where other developers and other companies and other users can really feel like this is just the internet. There's no reason to call this Web3 anymore.
Yeah, well said. What an episode, man. Appreciate you coming on. Before you go, can you please let our listeners know where they can find you personally and, of course, EtherMail online and on socials?
Absolutely. So you can follow me on Twitter. I'm not an active poster. You can follow me on LinkedIn. So just search for me with my first name and last name, Shant Kevonian. Otherwise, for the company, you can definitely find us on Twitter, Telegram, and if not, just sign up on EtherMail. It's a very seamless experience. You'll be familiar with it, with the user interface, and you can be a part of our exclusive newsletters for our EtherMail users.
Boom. And there we have it, folks. What an episode with Shant Kevonian, CEO and founder of EtherMail. Folks, we jumped into everything email related, the future of email, Web3 email, jumped into ETH, EVM compatibility, how to successfully launch a token, a little bit about EMT as well, some GDPR nonsense, FOMO in crypto, and some killer use cases for crypto apps. Huge shout out to Shant and the team for making this happen. If you guys enjoyed this one, and I hope you did, please do subscribe. It would mean the world to my team and I. Speaking of the team, love you guys. Thank you so much for everything. As always, Eustace, you are the man. And back to the listeners, love you guys. Keep on growing those bags and keep on staying healthy, wealthy, and happy. Bye for now, and we'll talk soon.